Hey everybody, it's Justin with Epic Game Time, and I am here bringing you the white-black control list that I'm going to be playing on stream for the next week, and the list that I do believe I'm going to be taking to the first Star City Games event. This is a list that I feel really attacks the new meta now that Marvel is out of the picture. So this, of course, is standard, and let's go over the deck list real quick. As we're going over, by the way, I'm also going to highlight a couple cards, why I picked it, and really go into explanation. So this might be a touch longer than my normal deck tech. Oh yeah, hold on. I'm not even going to cut this part out. We're going to auto-hide that desk bar. You don't want to see the desk bar. Alright, here we go. So we have 25 lands. We have a Blighted Fen. And again, Blighted Fen, hit the preview panel right here. Blighted Fen, 4 and a black, sacrifice Blighted Fen, target opponent sacrifices a creature. That's just an awesome land for us to have. It triggers Revolt with Fatal Push. It sacks a creature, so if my opponent's like, oh, I'm going to throw down a Torrential Gearhulk, or I'm going to throw down a Bristling Hydra, and I'm just going to protect it all day. Well, they can't protect it from Blighted Fen. So that is our answer to those really big problem creatures. It was our answer to Ulamog, but Ulamog's not really a problem anymore because Aether's Marvel is, of course, banned. So, 4 Concealed Courtyards, 4 Evolving Wilds, which just help with Delirium, because our deck does care about Delirium somewhat, and good mana fixing. Gear-Rich Sanatorium, we are a control deck, so we do want some draw, so this is our other colorless producing land, but to tap, each player draws a card and discards a card. It lets us cycle through our deck. Planes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One day I'll actually memorize how many actual planes and swamps I have in the deck before I do a deck tech, but for now, 5 planes. 4 Shambling Fence, just some more color fixing, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 swamps. So we have 25 lands. That seems like a lot, but we are a control deck, so we really, really, really want to be hitting a land every turn. Then we have our control suite, which is removable because we're not running actual control, like counters. So we have 4 Fatal Push, 2 Immolating Glare, 4 Grasp of Darkness, 2 Anguish Unmaking. This is how we're going to beat Heart of Curians. This is how we're going to beat Planeswalkers. This is how we're going to beat any of those really, really, really annoying permanents that Fatal Push, Grasp, and Cast Out. Well, Cast Out can hit it, but like if we need it off the board. Also, it gets rid of other Cast Outs. Cast Outs become one of the premier removals because it's just good in your hand. It's good on the board. So we do definitely want to run 2 Anguish Unmakings. Then, of course, as I said, Cast Out. It's great. If we don't need to use it, we can cycle it for another card. If so, hey, it's an Oblivion Ring for a little more on the top, but it has flash. And then, of course, Descend Upon the Sinful. Now, this is why we have Delirium. So we can exile the creatures. Exile is important here. We exile creatures. Why? Well, the reason we're exiling them is because it's great against zombies. Marvel's not a thing anymore. Expect zombies to be huge. And it will be. So we want things that exile. So all we have to do is get turn 6, slam this, exile their board, and if we have Delirium, which isn't terribly hard to get in this deck, we're gonna wipe the board and leave a 4/4 White Angel creature token flying for our trouble. Great card. Now, with any control deck, you will have to have some creatures. So we have 3 Comball, Console of Allocation. I know a lot of people are like, man, what is this guy? 1 white and a black for 2/3. Legendary creature, that's why we're only running 3. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. If you can resolve this against blue-red aggro, or blue-red control. If you can resolve this against any of the blue-black controls. The key here, if you can resolve this against even, what would be another deck that this would be really, really awesome against? Any jank deck that's trying to cast, Meltwater Colossus, which there's going to be a lot of those. It's also fairly good against the token generating decks. So this hits so many decks. And the important thing is it's a 2/3. So it's actually not that bad of a blocker either. And it gets around Magma Spray, which has become the premier removal spell for most decks that are running red. Well, we can get around that now. And, oh boy, it's really strong. Plus, it's great against 2-ticket red, which is becoming more and more and more prevalent, especially now that they don't have to worry about turn 4, I lose the game. Alright, then we have Eternal Scourges. That's also a weird card for a lot of people, so I'll break it down. Eternal Scourge, costs 3 to play, 3 colorless. You may cast Eternal Scourge from exile. That's the most important part. When Eternal Scourge becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, exile Eternal Scourge. It's a 3/3 that you can cast from exile. Okay, well, how do we get into exile? Lost Legacy. We're going to run 4 main board. Now, I will warn you, if you do not understand the meta in your area, or the meta in general, or you don't understand what cards are in what decks, maybe don't run this Lost Legacy Eternal Scourge package. The reason I do, and the reason I think you should, if you can, is with Lost Legacy, the first Lost Legacy, we're going to aim at ourselves, and we're going to name Eternal Scourge. Well, because Lost Legacy lets us exile a non-artifact, non-land card. So we're going to exile all 4 Eternal Scourges. And then we have 4 Eternal Scourges that we can just cast whenever we feel like. 4 creatures that are out of the game, that our opponent can't even get out of our hand. So we have 4 creatures available at all times. It's wonderful. And then with the other 3 Lost Legacies, if we so happen to draw one, we can then, with our knowledge of what our opponent's playing and what's usually in those colors and in that particular deck, start tearing our opponent's deck apart. So main board Lost Legacies are actually quite wonderful. And 1 Sky Sovereign Consul Flagship. So we have, this is just one of, kind of acts as removal, but Eternal Scourge is actually quite good at crewing it, because it grew for 3. Eternal Scourge is a 3/3. So that's why I really like having it. As just a one-of, you wouldn't really want to draw more than that. Alright, now, because we are a control deck, well, how do you win, Justin? Let me tell you. We either win with Eternal Scourges and Sovereign Consul Flagship, but most of the time it's with our Planeswalker package. We have 2 Gideons, Ally of Zendikar, 2 Ob Nixilis Reignited, and 2 Sorin Grim Nemesis, 1 in the sideboard. Usually, if we can resolve and protect one of these creatures, or one of these Planeswalkers, and by protect, removing creatures, obviously we can't protect them from instants or sorceries because we don't actually have counters, but we can protect them from cast out using Anguish Unmaking in our own cast out, and we can't protect them from creatures because we have a bunch of removal. And we have like Shambling Vents and Kumbals and Eternal Scourges to block. And we just either overrun the board with Gideon, or ult with Ob Nixilis, or use the +1 on Sorin to just chip away damage a little here, a little here. This deck is not about winning in blistering fashion. This deck is about going long and taking small advantages, and all of those tiny little advantages end up adding up to where your opponent is out of cards, out of creatures, top decking. That's where we want your opponent to be, and that's what this deck's good at. We'll go to the sideboard. We have 3 Fragmentize, with Aetherworks Marvel being gone. I firmly predict Mardu vehicles coming back in full force, and with that, Fragmentize is beautiful for Heart of Kirans and the like. Plus, we're going to see a ton of Walking Ballistas. Oh, so many of them. So you're going to want to take Fragmentize and put that in. Fumigate is obviously good against any of those aggro decks that will be back in full force. So we have 2 in there to add with our Descend Upon the Sinful. 4 Transgress the Mind against your control decks. Go ahead and clear their problematic counterspells before you resolve your Planeswalkers. 1 more Sorin, which is good against control, and 2 more Anguished Unmaking. If our opponent is playing a lot of weird things, like a bunch of artifacts and enchantments, we'll throw that in and really get to work on them, especially Planeswalkers. Then we have Never Return. This is if our opponent's playing a ton of creatures and we feel like we need a little extra removal, or just a bunch of Planeswalkers, Anguish Unmaking and Never Return are the ways to go. Now remember, just a quick tip before we go. If you're playing against a deck that's jamming a whole bunch of Liliana, the Last Hope, the one that targets, gives -2/-1, or you're playing something with a bunch of walking ballistas, side out the Eternal Scourge package. Side out Locke's Legacy, side out Eternal Scourge, and side in like Transgress and like Never Returns, and maybe the Anguish Unmaking. Side into more of a control route using your Planeswalkers, because Eternal Scourge cannot handle being targeted that much. That's not what this card's about. So don't be married to this combo. It's very, very good against a lot of decks, especially because not many people are going to expect it. But know when to side this out. Understand when Eternal Scourge, and if you're going to side one Legacy, or you're like maybe a couple of Eternal Scourges, just side the whole thing out. You need 4 and 4 of each. If you're not going to run 4 and 4 of each, side all of them out for the matchup. Alright, well, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit follow, subscribe, of course. If you have any questions, leave a comment for me down below. My name is Justin with Epic Game Time. You all have been my epic viewers. Hope you all do something epic today. Have a great night.